right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us tonight via Zoom. My name is Jason Moore, and I'm with Corporate Communications for the city. Tonight, happy to be helping facilitate this Ward 7 meeting. For those of you who are new to Zoom, welcome. We hope you like it. Hopefully, we can also get back to in-person meetings again soon. This platform, the Zoom platform, gives us a couple of ways to interact. You can ask questions of Councillor Gill and others through the Q&A feature, and you should see that along the bottom of your screen. You just type your question in whenever you want. There's no need to wait, and we'll read it aloud and get it answered by the appropriate people. The other option is to click the raise hand icon, and you can ask the question yourself that way. Again, no need to wait. Just click the raise hand option whenever you're ready, and we'll get to you as soon as possible. I only ask that you keep your questions as concise as you can, written or verbal, and we'll do our best to have them answered. So that's the basics of Zoom. Now to the meeting itself. We're here to specifically discuss Ward 7 and the issues and opportunities for Ward 7. This is the 7th of 10 ward-specific Zoom meetings that we're hosting over the course of October and November. And as always, we encourage those with issues or opportunities specific to their ward to bring them up during their meeting. This way we can all stay focused on the ward at hand as much as possible. Joining us tonight is, of course, Ward 7 Councillor Gill, but also Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins, and a number of administrative staff are here to help answer any questions the councillor or mayor might wish to defer. There is an hour slated for this meeting, so hopefully that works out. But for anyone who may have less time to give us, we'll be trying to get the full meeting up on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Lastly, if you should have a question that we don't get to this evening or that comes to mind later, you can always email your ward councillor, the mayor's office, or 311 afterwards. Now that we know what we're in for, I'd like to ask Councillor Gill to activate his microphone and share a few words to get the discussion going. Councillor.
Thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territories of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, which includes the Ojibwa, the Odboa, and the Potawatomi. The City of Windsor honors all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people and their valuable past and present contribution to this land. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ward 7 first virtual meeting. Thanks you to all the participants and administration for joining us today. Hopefully soon we can have switched to in-person meetings once health guideline allows it. This meeting will provide some updates on what's been happening in ward, as well as discuss any concern that you have. I would like to start off by saying thank you to the resident of Ward 7 for giving me this opportunity to serve them since last October. In the last year, serving on council, we have made a lot of improvements in our ward to improve our parks, trails, roads, and infrastructure, to improve our healthy lifestyle and make a safer neighborhood. Earlier this year, we opened a new cycle pump track and built new off-road cycling trails along the Little River corridor. We have invested in revitalization of Forts Glade, Optimist Park to add a splash pad, washroom, and renew the tennis courts and adding a new pickleball courts. An environmental assessment is planned to start soon to improve the safety and revitalization of Sandpoint Beach. There has been wonderful progress made to Beach Island to protect the island's shoreline and create new habitat for species at risk. We had a major planting of trees earlier this year on Little River and Florence Avenue. Residents can also look forward to seeing more trees, native plants, and shrubs adding around Aspen and Blue Heron lakes over the next 2 years. Around 3.2 kilometers were repaved to Blue Heron Lake Trail and Aspen Lake in the Little River corridor, and 500 meters of new trail was added to Aspen Lake. The refurbishment work on the pedestrian bridge is now in progress, as well as on Blue Heron Lake. Little River Bridge on Riverside Drive was refurbished and finished. The left turn signal at McNaughton and Bandwell is also in progress. First phase of Bandwell to make 4 lanes between Tecumseh and Palmetto finished last year, and second phase from Palmetto to Mulberry with Roundabout will begin soon in next year. New transit bus route 518X to St. Clair College started this September from Tecumseh Mall. City Traffic Department is working on the speed calming zero vision policy to bring to the council in coming months to address speeding and road safety in our neighborhoods. I put my efforts towards speaking on all the residents concerned on their behalf and working towards finding the best solution to improve our ward and make it safer and healthier neighborhood. Now, I would like to introduce some of administration commissioners and their teams who are going to be joining us to assist tonight's meeting. First is new CEO, Jason Reiner, new city engineer, Chris Nepsey, and Commissioner of Parks, Ray Mansour, and Commissioner of Social Services, Jelna Payne, and Commissioner of Corporate Services, Joe Mancina. And we are joined from Police Deputy Chief Frank Provident, and other members from their teams are joined to assist your questions. Now, I would like to invite our Mayor, Drew Dilkins, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gill, and thank you for the brief outline of some of the accomplishments. And for those who are on the line, Councillor Gill has been a very eager learner since getting elected in the by-election, working very, very hard for the residents of Ward 7, is in my office all the time advocating for projects all over the map in terms of parks and roads and trying to make improvements. And I appreciate the spirit of cooperation that he's brought to the table and looking forward for the city in terms of making this a better place to live. And I just wanted to touch, I guess, on a few issues before we take your questions, because we only have an hour and this is really your opportunity to ask questions. But I want to start off by acknowledging that COVID has been difficult. I know it has for families across the city. It's been difficult for people in leadership roles. It's been difficult for those trying to get back to work and stay out of lockdown. I know it's been tough, and I appreciate all that you've been doing to help support us as we've worked to guide the city through a very challenging 20 months. There is certainly bright light on the horizon. We see it happening with the reopening of the border this week, and we're working very hard to try and have the COVID restriction or the PCR test restriction or requirement removed so that you're able to get back to your family on the other side of the border in advance of the Christmas holidays and do it in a safe way. On the finance side, overall, we're tracking very, very well in terms of the deficits related to COVID, and they are mainly borne by airport operations and tunnel operations. And I think people recognize that for a big part of the year, the airport was still mainly closed. And from the tunnel perspective, it was essential traffic up until very, very recently. And so we're dealing with those challenges, but both the federal and provincial government understand that these are unique challenges, that there is no other city in the country that owns an international border crossing, and that we have done all we can to help mitigate those costs and expenses. And so we will be going back to them again in 2021 to try and deal with the hole that we have, which is around $10 million. And that's down from about $35 million where we started at the beginning of the year. And last year we were made whole on the deficit we had because of these operations, and it's recognized that they're unique at both the provincial and federal level. Wanted to talk about the hospital very quickly. And of course, the Premier and the Minister of Health were in Windsor just a couple of weeks ago. And it's no longer just talk about moving the hospital project forward. They came with almost $10 million in funding to help David Mouche and the team at Windsor Regional Hospital move the phase 2 project forward. And for the next 18 to 24 months, the team at Windsor Regional will be leading the public consultation that really is about spelling out what the hospital looks like, what the services are, where they're located in the hospital, mapping out the size of hallways where equipment will be stored, and making sure that we get the design of a hospital that we need to serve the people in Windsor and Essex. And I think that through this global pandemic, if there's one thing we've all learned and one thing we've all appreciated, is that healthcare is critically important. Good healthcare is critically important. And this community deserves a new hospital. We've worked very, very hard to get us this far, and the process is well underway. And so we've actually crossed that hump because up until 2 weeks ago, we were at the one side of the hump of, will it ever happen? Will there be a hospital? And now that the $10 million has been given, that moves this project to the other side of the hump, and it becomes when the project happens, not if it happens, but when. And so this work is underway, and I'm really proud of my colleagues on council for helping advocate to get us across the finish line. And two more things, Windsor Works. It is not lost upon anyone on city council that when we look out, if I look out at my office at City Hall here and I look over at the casino, that there are 1,100 people who are still off work because the business is not returned there, and those families are hurting. And it's not lost on anyone at City Council that Stellantis has announced that the second shift will be disappearing in 2022 as a result of COVID-related supply chain challenges. And so these are pain points in the community. And we also recognize that gas is about $1.50 a liter, milk is going up 12%, and that you see inflation happening all around you. And this Windsor Works economic diversification strategy that City Council has unanimously adopted and funded, by the way, is a commitment by this City Council that we want to do exactly what we said we were going to do in 2018, which is build some shock absorbers into our economy and start the process of diversification so that this type of news, these types of announcements are not as painful for the community moving forward. And we've got a great commitment with this team to see that happen. And I think that links very, very nicely into the last point, which I wanted to mention, which was our budget for 2022, which we will be deliberating on December the 13th at City Hall. And certainly your feedback, once it's released in about a week's time, will be very, very important to help guide City Council. But because of those inflationary pressures, because of the employment situation and the precarious nature of COVID at this point, we are going to present a budget to the citizens of Windsor that is extremely prudent, as it always has been. There won't be a lot of extras, but we're going to hit all the basics. You expect us to deal with flooding. You expect us to deal with roads and basement flooding and all of those important things. We've got a $1.6 billion capital plan, $160 million for 2022 in spending. We're hitting a lot of major road projects, including Bandwell Road in Ward 7 and many other projects there as well. And we recognize that this is a challenging time financially for many in the community, and you can count on us at City Hall to present a budget that is going to be reflective of the times that we're in and is not going to put an undue burden on the taxpayers in this city. So residents of Ward 7, thank you very much for taking some time to join the conversation tonight. I look forward to some of your questions, and just so you know, Councillor, I will have to leave at about 6:45 to pick my son up from his part-time job and bring him home, but I'm happy to be here until then, and thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship, and back to Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Gill. We'll start right into the questions then. Our first question comes to us from LC, and it's a two-part question. I'd like to know if the land between Beverly Glen and Wyandotte, between Bellagio and Florence, is going to be developed. And then further, is it the plans for Clover and or Florence to go through to Wyandotte? I can go through that again if you'd like.
No, thank you, Jason. Yes, thank you, Elsie, for your question. Yes, it is going to be developed. It is owned by a private developer, and I believe there is no timeline when it is going to be, but I believe in coming years we can see more development. And I will ask Michael if he want to add on, Michael Cook, he want to add on about this development.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor, and thanks for the question. Yeah, as I understand it, if in East Riverside, north of Beverly Glen, there is a large land holding that looks at the future extension. It will include the future extension of Clover to the north and also Florence to the north up to meet Wyandotte. Fortunately, it's all held by one developer, and they've been in discussions with us in the planning department to look at final approvals that they require, and that'll allow for, again, more residential development that's greatly needed in the city. So I would expect perhaps some construction as soon as this coming year, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you both. Next question comes from Jay. And again, I'll break it down into two parts this time. The first part is about Meadowbrook Road. And he asks about taking a motion to council to install a parking lot to supplement the two schools to reduce road traffic and increase safety for the school kids. So we'll start with that.
Thank you, Jay, for your question. Yes, as you know, the school is in the building process, and hopefully like they are building up a bigger parking lot to assist this need. And also, like if we need to, I already talked to the superintendent at school too about the issues we seen residents seen on a day-to-day basis. But the challenges are this year was the construction people are using the same street. Also, the students are coming back. Parents are dropping and picking up their children in earliest morning and in the evening. And hopefully, like we can see that once, after the March, the students are going to go to, I believe, to Eastwood School for next 3 months, and then they will demolish the front portion of the older building of the school, and to prepare the school to be open at September for next year. And they are, if you can see the plan of they have a bigger parking lot to assist, and there is a kiss and ride program so that it is make it easier for people to drop their kids and be safer for everyone.
Excellent, thank you. And the second part of Jay's question is he'd like to see a three-way stop at Mulberry and Forest Glade, says it's a difficult left turn southbound onto Forest Glade.
Thanks, Jason. Again, Jay, I believe I talked to a couple of residents. They raised this concern. I believe for this one, I will ask either Jeff Hagan or Shana Box. One of them can put a light on that. What are the process to have a stop sign there?
Good evening, Councillor. Thank you for the question for this one. Anytime a resident has an issue with a sightline or a request for an all-way stop similar to this, they can submit through 311, and that comes to the traffic department, and we will do a review of the intersection and sightlines in question.
Terrific, thank you both. We'll go to the phones now. We have our first person to bring in. I say go to the phones, but it's really Zoom. And the first person is Lynn with her hand up. Bring Lynn in. If you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Gill, for we got your newsletter and all your accomplishments. Thank you. I specifically live around the Blue Heron area, and we did have flooding here in 2016. So I hope the city stays committed to reduce flooding in this area. I see we have a lot of vegetation that's being planted, which is great. And the other thing that concerns me, I know Gil looked into this, the drain that takes water out of the pond after heavy rains. We have a lot of littering around that drain. And the concern of the residents is that it might get blocked, just like our eaves troughs work by gravity to take water off our roof. If these pipes work by gravity, but they won't work if they're blocked with litter. So we wanted to know if there's some type of maintenance program in place to make sure that the drains and everything to that pond are working properly.
Thank you, Lynn, for your question. Yes, there is a lot of development in Blue Heron Pond, that there is a new paved the trail, there are more trees coming up, there's more cleanup to be happened to the pond. This concern, I will ask the Infrastructure Service Commissioner, Chris Nepsey, if he want to add on, or anybody from his team can add on for the concern raised by Lynn.
Thanks, Councillor Gill. Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Nepsey. I am the Commissioner of Infrastructure Services here for the City of Windsor. I can answer your question generically, Councillor, in terms of, yeah, there's an inspection, on our infrastructure with respect to the ponds, with respect to the outlets. But always, if residents see something there that they need or they think is a blockage, call 311. You know, call 311 is always the best. Our residents are our best eyes and ears out there. If they're able to pass that on to us, and then we can manage and take care of it immediately that way.
Thank you, Chris. Anything, Fong, you want to add on, or?
Yeah, in general, we do our drainage maintenance. Our cycle is generally 4 to 5 years in terms of drainage maintenance. So we do time and time do inspection on it, make sure it's clear blockage. If you do notice any blockage, please again notify 311, and we will send a crew and make sure that's unblocked for you.
Okay, thank you, Fong. Thank you, Lynn.
Terrific. Our next question is about the WFCU, asking, will we be offering public skating to all our fully vaccinated residents this fall and winter?
Thank you for the question. If Jen Knights or Raymond Stewart can provide more details. Thanks.
My pleasure. Good afternoon, Councillor Gill and everyone. Thank you for the question. Yes, by the way, I'm the Acting Executive Director of Recreation and Culture, and we are working on generating some public skating opportunities for folks in the near future. Our focus this fall was getting up and running with our regular user groups, and we've now turned our attention to public skating, so more information on those dates should be available soon.
Terrific. Thanks, Jen. Love the background too. That looks great. Our next question now, will the trail around the lake at Wyandotte and Florence be paved? We've been paving a lot of trails.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Yes, like they already started work on the Florence side. We finished half a kilometer of new paved trail on that end. And I will ask Ray Mansour or James Chaco to add on further, like connecting to either the Little River corridor from Florence.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. Good evening, everyone. So certainly, Councillor, you're correct. We just completed the 500-meter section from along Florence from Little River Boulevard to Beverly Glen. The next phases would be to extend that section now running east-west to meet up with some of the already existing asphalt trails that run between the ponds and the Little River Nursery. So certainly that's something that will likely come online within the next couple of years as funding becomes available.
Thank you, James.
Excellent. Our next question, it's a little bit complicated. I'll try to flesh it out here. It looks like the Indra is looking for connections between places like Clover to Wyandotte and Little River up to Riverdale. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Indra, for your question. And yes, as we in the first question, we said like there is going to be a possibility development coming soon in that neighborhood that will elevate it to make a connection Clover to between Wyandotte and Beverly Glen, and same thing is with the Florence. It's going to be happen because that comes to be a responsibility of the developer to extend that road. And if anything add on to that I would ask either from Chris or anybody want to, or planning want to add on to this for that road extension.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, it's Michael Cook again. Yeah, I'd be happy to just help confirm, as you've mentioned. Yeah, that road network in the area, we do call this North Neighborhood. So as you move from Florence right to Bellagio, that large area, two of the main roads, again, Florence is expected to be part of that extension up to Wyandotte as a collector road, and the same with Clover. A wider road that allows for, is designed for larger number of vehicles to feed up and get in and out of the area. So yeah, those connections will be in place. They'll include sidewalks as well as bike features and facilities on many of those streets as well. So that'll help with connections. Thank you.
And just to follow up on what Michael said, Indra had written back again saying, and if there's a road put in, make sure there's a sidewalk as well. And if a bylaw needs to change to do that, then let's make it happen. So Michael touched on the same thing.
Yeah, Jason, I think the second part of that one is like he want to check it if there is a Little River connection to Riverdale. If Michael Cook can add on to this one through across from the Hope Hill, is there any way that can be connection can be feasible or not feasible?
Yeah, that one I may have to defer to some of my colleagues because I'm not aware of any development that's occurring in that area. So if it's part of an existing road network that might need an extension by the municipality, to be honest, I'm not too sure where Hope Hill actually is. But if it's not part of that north neighborhood area, it would need to be part of a separate project, I believe.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Terrific. Our next question comes from Monique. Are some of the playgrounds in our area still planned for upgrades in the near future?
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Monique, for your question. Yes, there are city brought it forward like 32 playgrounds citywide is going to be improved. 5 of that from the Ward 7 is going to be improved in the coming years. I believe there are 5 of them are Cora Greenwood Park and Little River Corridor Park, Seneca Park, Still Meadow Park, and South Rendezvous Park. 5 are already in the pipeline to be renovated and upgraded between 2022 to 2023. And if Ray want to add on more on this, I would like to ask Ray to.
Thank you, Councillor. You covered it perfectly. Exactly those 5. And you're right. We will start work immediately. We hope to have them done in 2022, but at the latest, they'll all be completed in early of 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Monique.
Our next question is from Melissa, who says she's wondering if there has been or if there can be a discussion for new multi-use home developments to build up instead of out to avoid increasing concrete flat ground space. For example, ensuring a balance between condos and townhomes, requiring condos with large parking lots to have parking garages instead of large parking lots. And this would also be helping with flood mitigation as well. So quite a handful there.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa, for your question. Yes, like the city is moving in a direction where we can cut down some of these concrete flat grounds. And I would ask from the planning if they would like to add on this question more.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And Melissa, it's an excellent question. It's one that's high on the radar of in terms of priorities for City Council and Planning Department and our colleagues. The whole idea of building up and not out is something we're seeing more of. And also there's some good examples on Bandwell Road in East Riverside and other proposals that are coming forward that look for multi-res development. Some of them will include parking on site or perhaps underground. The good thing is with our colleagues in Public Works, we always look to ensure that even if there is hard surface, there's stormwater built into a proposal so that the pre-development, in other words, when an area was just open field where a lot of ground was absorbed or rainwater and whatnot was absorbed into the ground, it's a requirement that even after the development, the same level of stormwater on-site detention needs to take place, so it's not adding to stormwater management challenges. But it's an excellent question, and fortunately, we've got some exciting proposals throughout the city and in Councillor Gill's ward that looks at this these various types of development as you've suggested. So thank you.
Great. Our next question's quite a bit shorter. Any plans to turn left, put left turn lanes at Forest Glade and Tecumseh Road? Any plans to put left turn lanes at Forest Glade and Tecumseh Road?
Thank you for your question. Yes, there is going to be a long overdue improvement to Tecumseh Road. And first section, I believe, is going to be starting with the improvement to the intersection of Forest Glade and Tecumseh Road. And that will elevate either 5 lanes there and will in coming years, that will, I've seen some funding in coming years for that improvement. Hopefully we can see that improvement coming, and I'm going to advocate to start work on this one sooner so that we can accomplish that. It was a pretty bad intersection because due to the left turn either towards making a left turn towards the Tim Hortons, that was always a challenging factor. And I believe if the Jeff Hagan want to add on more on this intersection, or somebody from the engineering, either Michael or Ford.
Certainly. You can see the preliminary design for the intersection. If you go to windsoreas.ca, look under completed environmental assessments and the Tecumseh Road East environmental assessment. So that shows you what the plan is for that intersection, as well as the whole length of Tecumseh, basically east of Little River. The overall plan is similar to what you see west of Little River and around Lozon Road and Lozon Parkway, with 3 lanes in each direction, a median, and with the only breaks being at signals. So all the driveways would be made right in, right out because of the median, and there would be left turn lanes at the signalized intersections.
Thank you, Jeff.
Great. We have another road question from the same sort of general area. Tecumseh Road from Canadian Tire to Bandwell is in bad shape, one of CAA's worst roads for 6 years. When can we see a rebuild?
Thank you, Greg, for your question. As like in previous question we answered, there is coming up on the improvement on that Tecumseh Road, and hopefully you can see in coming years there is going to be improvement, and that is what it is, like a big project. I'm always advocating for that improvement to be happen, to start soon. And I believe, like you can see in coming years, like that, your concern can be looked after.
Great. Our next question looks like a two-parter from Melissa. I have noticed the trail around Blue Heron Pond has been increasingly naturalized over the summer. Understands the reasons for naturalization, but as it is set within many residents, is the municipality ensuring safety in terms of undesirable animals? That's the first part of that one.
Thank you, Melissa, for your question. Is James or anything want to add on to what we can do to stop the animals to?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gill, for the question. And certainly, as you're right, as the naturalization has increased throughout the embankments of both Blue Heron and Aspen Lake, it's something we continue to work with, ensuring that there are the proper, not only plant material, but animals within the area. So certainly would encourage any residents, if they're noticing anything that would be undesirable, skunks, rats, anything along those lines of that, please contact 311 and we would go out and handle it. But typically we don't have issues with rodents or land animals and issues. Certainly we do have some ongoing challenges with the geese population along those areas, but we continue to work on how to mitigate that and keep that area clean for residents to use.
Thank you, James, and thank you.
Yeah, the second part of that relates to the growth as well. This person's worried about preservers not being able to be seen as well and be maintained in the future. Are we cognizant of that?
Thanks again, Melissa. I divert this one again to James Chaco to give a little bit insight of this growth.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. Yeah, so in terms of how parks maintain, so all of our inland life preserver stations are maintained to make sure that there's clear egress from the trail. It's cut down from the trail. There's a wide path. There's the area immediately around the preservers are maintained. We do continue to receive some questions about why the area, say, between the preservers and the bodies of water themselves aren't as maintained, and basically we're looking to ensure that there's clear access from the trail to get to the preserver, and that there are then defined spots around the bodies of water where there would be a clear path to the water. There's not always going to be, we don't really want to encourage people to access the water from a lot of different areas because of the underlying conditions of the shore or sudden drop off. So we really do keep the life preservers clear and visible from the path, and then allow certain egress points throughout the pond and trail system.
Thanks, James. Again.
Okay, Councillor, I think we'll go to the Zoom question again from Lynn.
Sure.
Lynn, if you want to unmute yourself, you can
Yeah.
chime in right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Melissa because I live around the Blue Heron area. And under the bylaw, that area is supposed to be a natural area. It was written in the bylaw 300. I think it's 300, 2002. Also, there's a plaque on the west side of the hill there that says this area is part of the Little River Conservation Area. So it's maintained to be natural. We have lots of migratory birds that come through there. We have lots of different types of turtles that live in the pond and fish. We have egrets and blue herons that feed off the fish. That's why it's so upsetting when we see fishermen and all the garbage around there, because this harms the birds and it upsets the biodiversity of that area. And that's what that area was designed to be, was to be biodiverse. It's not a recreational area. It's meant to be just an area where you walk around the trails and enjoy the beauty of nature.
Great, thank you, Lynn.
Thanks.
The next question is what's being done, and they put in quotations, gang, what's being done about the gang problem we have in the Forest Glade Park?
Thank you for your question. Yes, I was approached by some resident, and we've seen some increased activities of violence in that one. And I asked Windsor Police to bring back a report to this issue to the council. They presented some suggestion for the improvement to be done to the park, because most of the items happened surrounding the skate park. And the short-term recommendation was like either we can increase lighting in that area, and also if there is a possibility of putting up cameras to monitor the area. And the long-term solution was also given to move that skate park to another corner or on the more light-up area. In that regard, first I would like to ask Deputy Chief Frank if he want to add on to this something more about this concern.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. You took all my answers. Just for the record, I don't think the city of Windsor, we don't have a gang problem. I don't know if that word was used in generalities, but your ward is a very safe ward and one of the lowest crime rates of all the wards in Windsor. So I'll defer to Inspector Andy Randall to answer this question in more detail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and whoever asked that question. I think you've already kind of answered the question as well as Deputy Providenti, but to add to that, we can't really be responding to calls and plan our response unless you report your incidences. So anything that you see, you should be reporting via the non-emergency number or online through CopLogic. In regards to the park, as you've already said, there was a SEP type thing that was brought to City Council in regards to recommendations for the park. Over the last while, we've seen that there's been cases where people have posted video on social media. We can't investigate things that are just posted on social media. That's been an official complaint. When it comes to being proactive, what we've been doing is doing directed patrols at Forest Glade Park. We've instructed the car that's patrolling that area, given low call volumes in the area, for them to sit in the parking lot and monitor it and submit reports in regards to that. We've also had the auxiliary officers patrolling the area. But to date, there's only really been 16 calls for service for that area at the skate park. And as Deputy Providenti has said, there's no known actual gang activity going on there. And that's all.
Thank you, Andy. And I would ask James Chaco if he want to add on for the improvement of the lights section of that too.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Gill. So recently the lighting was all replaced. There were the existing light poles within the park. So as part of the capital asset management plan, all the lights were recently replaced and upgraded to all new LED lights. We did also, as part of that process, extend 2 additional lights. And then as part of a response to your council question, we will be providing potential other phases and other alternatives to address the concerns that were brought forward.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Very thorough answer. And I think they put it in quotations saying, we don't really think it's a gang. We're just saying, for lack of a better word, gang. So I get what you're saying though. We go back to the roads for our next question. It's about Cora Greenwood Dillon. It calls it a difficult corner to navigate. Wondering if the 2-way stop there could become a 4-way stop. That's the part 1 of that question.
Thank you, Jason, for question. And yes, I also talked to a lot of nearby resident. This is a big concern in that neighborhood, especially in the morning when the school buses are in the neighborhood. And I would like to ask Jeff Hagan, or if he want to add on anything, a possibility to transfer 2-way to 4-way stop.
Certainly, it's something we can look at. I'd encourage the resident to put in a service request to 311. That way they'll get a tracking number and they can get the status for their request.
Thank you.
Perfect. The second part to this is asking about putting a roundabout at Little River and Bandwell, potential for that.
Yeah, thanks again for your question. Yes, there is improvement even in the south side of Bandwell is happening 4 lanes. I know there is a lot of concern about Bandwell and Little River intersection, because that is a pretty much a busy intersection. And we can look into that one if there is a feasibility of putting up a roundabout. And that is always like as in other requests, Jeff from the transportation and planning transportation section of the city, he mentioned that like we need to start initiative this project, this request, and hopefully like they will do the study, and if feasible to based on the funding availability, then we can look into to install another roundabout. There is a roundabout is coming up on Bandwell and Mulberry intersection that is coming in the next year, and hopefully like we can see the result of that one, how that treats the traffic that will implementing if in the future we need to put it up in towards the Little River and Bandwell intersection too.
Terrific. Thank you, Councillor. We have a hand up, so we'll try to bring William in, and William can ask the question. Just take your microphone and you can go ahead, William.
Yeah, you hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Good evening, Councillor Gill and Mayor and Administrative Management team. My point to kind of just to highlight and bring everyone up to speed, I've been always speaking at a number of the ward meetings, and everyone just would like to be able to explain to the general public that my name is William Ballas, and I have 28.3 acres of land in Ward 9, just off of County Road 42 along Little River, 150 meters east of the new hospital site. The questions all seem to be geared to the development of the Sandwich South District, the Sandwich South Master Servicing Plan, the floodplain mapping that's coming down. And I guess more or less my question to Councillor Gill is that he had to deal with an issue earlier this year about the development occurring on Lausanne Road. And the residents were very upset and vocal about how this development was occurring, which is surprising again, because it's right along Little River Drain itself, which is part of the 325-meter corridor. And as of recent, it's been just brought to my attention today that right now, scheduled for next week on the 17th, the Little River Watershed Regulated Floodplain Mapping update is to occur at the same time that there's a council award meeting for Ward 2, which seems to have a conflicting of time and will create an issue for residents of Ward 2 to partake, as well as the other residents throughout the city of Windsor and the other wards that may wish to listen on the conversations of Ward 2. I've asked for a notification to them to say that they should be looking at changing the time. So I guess the question to Councillor Gill is every time I hear something, as well as in your ward, flooding is an issue. Basement flooding is an issue. And it seems to be getting sort of brought up, but really not addressed. So maybe you can have some comments on that. I'm not sure if you knew about the Little River Watershed Regulated Flood Mapping update to occur, which is involving the Sandwich South Master Servicing Plan, as well as the City of Windsor's Master Sewer System.
Thank you, William. Councillor, you got a lot to take in there.
Thank you. Thank you, William, for your question. Yes, no, there is some concern in flooding in the Ward 7 also. And there is a major part of that one, if you are talking about 2016 and 17, that happened in the East Riverside area. And I'm always constantly talking to the resident and administration to come up the solutions to rectify this problem. And also like the watershed you mentioned about that one, we can see what study is reflecting, and I will advocate for the Ward 7, how we can eliminate the flooding issues. I would like to ask from the planning or the engineering if they want to add on from the side of the watershed study.
Hi, it's Fahad Michael from engineering. And there are some studies ongoing right now in addition to the sewer master plan. And they're in the middle of studies now, and they are taking care of what's related to the Little River drain, municipal drain. And with the investment that's going on now with the sewer master plan, we are already doing lots of work to combat that basement flooding the best we can at this time. It needs a lot of money, but we will wait. We will await the studies to be completed right now for the Sandwich South area, and we'll go from there.
Perfect.
Our next Councillor Gill, can I add to that?
Sure.
Yeah. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, anytime I can advocate for our basement subsidy program, I always would want to push residents that way. I mean, we've given out, millions of dollars of subsidy. I think we have over 7,000 applicants for subsidy programs over the last few years. So, go to our website. There's avenues there for you to protect your home and have it subsidized by the city to help everybody on that system. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Chris, for the add-on. I think that is a good initiative run by the city to take advantage of, so that we can try to do our math on our side. Then we can see on the major side, what is the city on the infrastructure side can be further improved with the master plan, sewer master plan.
Terrific. Our next question asks, are any considerations going to be given to the Eagle's Nest in the area north of Bellagio? It's been there for well over a decade.
Thanks for your question. I will divert it back to the parks if anything they want to add on to this. Anything is happening, James?
Thank you, Councillor Gill. So certainly the Parks Department is very aware, and we have our city naturalist who has worked on and been involved for years with this specific Eagle's Nest, as well as other Eagle's Nests and platforms within the city, particularly out at Pesh Island. So certainly this is something that we're aware of, and I would defer to any further comments from planning in terms of what would have to be satisfied prior to any sort of development or possible use of those lands that would in any way interfere with the Eagle's Nest.
Thanks, James. Yeah, that is true. We can Michael, you want to add on something or?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, James. Yeah, it's the good news is that yeah, bald eagles are no longer listed as endangered species as we understand it, but nonetheless, we still have directed, and it's our understanding that the developer is engaged with specialists in this very area. They've also reached out to the Ministry of let me get this right. It's the Ministry of, they keep changing their names to get quite, but it's the one that refers to forestry. Here it is, Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry. So they're aware they need to be engaged with the developer to look at options to either create more platforms and locations that are closer to the water for the eagles, where they obviously forage and get majority of their food and whatnot. So that's something that the developer's been aware of. They need that approval from the province, and as James mentioned, it'll be done in communication with our city naturalist as well.
Thank you, Michael and James.
Next question is about Bandwell and Florence, a little river between Bandwell and Florence. A lot of speeding. Any plans to review that area due to the kids that catch the bus along that road?
Thank you again for your question, Elsie. Yes, it's not just Bandwell. The Little River is the concern of speeding. I believe all city around is speeding is a big concern, and safety of the resident are concerned. To myself, since I'm elected from day one, I am advocating for there are like as you mentioned, Little River, Bandwell, Clover, McNaughton, McHugh, and even Wyandotte, a stretch on the north side of Tecumseh is a big concern to the resident for the speeding. As we are working towards bringing, as I mentioned earlier, that the zero vision policy and speed calming initiatives are already in the process of developing new policies. And hopefully like that will rectify some of the concerns, and we are working in that one. And I talked to a lot of residents in a neighborhood to Little River, either Thunder Bay, Clover, Everness, and other Peabody. In these streets, like people are concerned about that, and also the school buses going around. Hopefully like that there is already a speed calming initiative in a process on a Little River, and hopefully with the recommendation from the transportation and zero vision policy will rectify this issue, and hopefully we can see the safer environment for everyone to be enjoying our trails beside Little River Trail and crossing that road from these streets to enjoy the trails and other areas of park in that neighborhood. Hopefully, like you can see coming days, you see the improvement in that one. As I mentioned, this is a citywide issue, and that is why we are waiting for the zero vision policy to come in to the council for further recommendations.
Great. Next question is back to a drainage issue with the new school, Meadowbrook Road, or Meadow Road, I guess it says. Plans, the new school's higher, 2.5 to 3 feet higher. Is, what can be done for something like that?
Thanks, Jay, for your question. I believe like I will ask the planning if they can add on something to drainage issue or from the engineering.
Councillor Gill, it's Chris. With respect to, drainage in infrastructure is the drainage within the right of way. So drainage as far as private property, I believe, and I'm new to the city, would be a private issue with respect to drainage, between neighbors, right? So I'm not sure if somebody from planning, if it gets into property standards here or not, but with respect to infrastructure, we have the drainage in the road and we provide that the ability to connect to that. So I know it doesn't answer your question, but it gives you some clarity around the issue.
Anything, Michael, you want to add on, or from the planning
Yeah,
perspective for this?
yeah, thank you. No, I think Chris captured that nicely. Nothing to add from planning. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Michael.
Thanks. And Jay, if we didn't do a good job of one or more questions, you can always follow up with us again. 311 is always the best way to really get the issues hammered out. Next question is from Michelle. Once the 4 lanes on Bandwell are extended to EC Row, will there be a cloverleaf there to relieve the massive congestion?
Thank you, Michelle, for your question. Yes, there is a progress for 4 lanes to be improved from Tecumseh to Palmetto was done last year, and the second phase of that one is always going to be start next year, and that will finish up to the second phase till Mulberry. And the further extension is with the time bound, the third phase is going to be happening. But I would like to ask Fahad if he want to add on for the further extension, how that, or it's a multi-phase, when the projects are bigger, it is multi-phase funding availability, and that is the way it extend and the further improvements are done. If Michael, you want to add something?
Yes, Councillor, again, it's Fahad Michael, and you said it exactly what I was gonna say. So the next phase, we're gonna be tendering for the project in January, the plan, and we're gonna start construction this spring or summer, and in 2022, and it's gonna take on from Mulberry to Palmetto, including a roundabout at Mulberry, as well as we're going to go approximately a couple hundred meters west of the roundabout, closer to the EC Row Expressway. And we're studying if there's any way that we can improve anything additional to that prior to going into the next phases, which requires quite a bit of money, as the councillor was saying. So,
thank you, Fahad.
Next question is a request. Can the Forest Glade sign at Forest Glade and Tecumseh Road be cleaned, pressure washed to clean it up a little?
Thanks for the question. Yes, it is I already talked to the administration, but we want to see the improvement to the whole, there is going to be land, it's going to be a 5 or 6 lane in that neighborhood, maybe that sign need to be moved or a little bit, I believe with that improvement, it will be looked into that either a new sign or something can be done more recognition of the Forest Glade sign, or if it takes a longer time, then I will look into that if either it's newly painted or do something to look nicer on that corner.
All right, now we have a question. As a user of the Nato Trail near Sandpoint Beach, it's pretty dark or extremely dark at night. Aren't there any plans to install lighting?
Thanks again, Jen, for your question. Yes, James, you can add on to the further lighting on that trails section.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. So certainly the parking lot directly across from the beach is one of a number that run along the Ganacho Trail. The Parks Department does continue to get requests for additional lighting in these parking lots and a number throughout the city. So it is something that we are continuing to work through within the capital budgeting process to find the funding approved by council to be able to install additional lighting in this and a number of other parking lots throughout the park system.
Terrific, thanks. Next question, what type of housing is expected north of Beverly Glen? Condos, single family, what kind of things are we looking at?
Thanks again, Jason, for the question from LC. Yeah, there is always when that it depends on the developer, what he wants to, but when it comes to planning, there is always a mixed use of single family condos or like some townhouses, semis could be a possibility of, you can see in that neighborhood coming up as we seen it a little south of Beverly Glen, between Beverly Glen and Little River. Similar mixture of always a development is in progress. That is what developer also divert towards either single family home and also like a mixture of everything to be in that neighborhood.
Terrific. And then the last question from LC is what is the status of Wyandotte going through to Jarvis?
Thank you, LC. There is I think an environmental assessment is going around, and if Andrew Doy is online, he can respond more for the further directions, like what is happening.
Hi, this is Fahad Michael again. Andrew is not with us today, but it's at the EA is at its final stages. We're expecting final draft to be done in the next month or two. And then we're gonna, if everything is successful, we're gonna follow up with the design, starting design on it, and hopefully follow up with the construction 2023 or 2024.
Thank you, Fahad.
And just one more little note from Michelle. She's just looking for clarification on the cloverleaf at EC Row. Did we give her a good answer on that one?
Thanks, Michelle. Fahad, you want to add on for this anything? For the third phase, I believe she is looking around the third phase of that one.
At this point here, it's not in the budget for the next 10 years, but it's one of the phases to follow. Meanwhile, we, as I mentioned, we're gonna try, based on Councillor Gill request earlier this year. We're trying to look if there's any alleviation to the traffic at that location, if we can extend certain lane or something, but we have to look into that one and study.
Yeah, thanks, Fahad. Yes, I as Fahad said, like I'm raised that concern, like even with our mayor for this the third phase of that. It always sees like the funding availability, and every councillor has to fight for that funding to be available for a bigger project. And hopefully, like I will accomplish something in coming years, as this is my first year, and we finish a lot of achievements in this Bandwell Road. If you look around, it's a multi-million-dollar extension and improvement to that neighborhood. That is a need for the resident for last couple of years, and hopefully we can see the third phase is also starting towards finishing towards the EC Row or overpass on EC Row in coming years. We can see the improvement toward that can be finished sooner than later.
Terrific, Councillor. That does wrap up the questions. A real good mix. Do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Yes, thank you, Jason, and thank you all the team. And again, I would like to thank you all the residents for giving me this opportunity and remind them that I'm always available to meet any resident, to listen to their concerns and find the best solution to make our ward and our future here a better place. Please do not hesitate to reach out any issues, big or small. I will try my best to make a difference. You ask and I will deliver. The best way to reach out with your concern is always to call 311, or you can email me directly at jgill@citywindsor.ca, or my telephone line is 519-946-1111. And also I am delivering a summer newsletter of the things happening in the ward. Most of should have received it, and those who have not will be getting it soon. But all of the information and more can always be found on my website, jeevangill.ca. Further, any resident can also book an appointment on my website for Coffee with Councillor to come and discuss any issues on any Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. and enjoy a coffee. And finally, I would like to thank Mayor Dilkins, council colleagues, and administration for working with me on these projects. These would not be possible without their support, and I thank them for their continued investment in our community. Thank you, everyone, and I hope to talk to you all soon. Thank you. Good night.